And people do Oh, hey, welcome to Amsterdam Talk Season 2, episode 26 or 27. Today, I have with me Miss Jennifer Vaughn with me from the Don't Stop Me Now podcast, correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, Don't Stop Me Now. She's an advocate for HIV. How are you doing, Miss Vaughn?
I'm doing really well. I just got off work a little while ago, just running some errands and running home to talk to you.
Okay, well, before we start, you tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I'm a 51-year-old single mom of three. I have a 21-year-old, an 18-year-old, a 14-year-old. I live in California, kind of near Santa Cruz, grew up in the Bay Area. I'm a teacher and what else? What else? What else? I like to surf, skate, snowboard, all those crazy things that, 51-year-old women do. And just living my best life out here. Yeah.
You sure you 51?
I swear to God, I am. August 24th, 1970. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, congratulations, for hitting the
Thanks.
big 5-0. But if you'd asked me guess it, I would have been like, oh, she's in her 30s at least. So.
Oh, no, 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 no. I feel like I'm 30. You'll see. You definitely, your brain and everything feels the same, but you just keep the age keeps going up and you can't because you still feel young. Yeah.
Got you. Okay, so we brought you in here to, talk about like, dating with HIV.
Hmm.
And you're advocate with, for people that are positive. How long have you been an advocate for this for
Well,
HIV?
I was diagnosed in 2016, right around almost 6 years ago. It was February 15th, 2016. I'd been getting really sick, didn't know what was wrong with me. By the time I was diagnosed, I had an AIDS diagnosis, meaning that my CD4 count was really low, and I ended up having PCP pneumonia. I was like, yeah, I was real, real, real sick. But I got better, and I couldn't believe that I was going to get to feel normal again for one thing, let alone like, the medicine wasn't making me feel sick. Like I felt absolutely like myself again. And I couldn't believe it. First of all, I was like, why is nobody talking about this? Like, why can't I find anything on the internet about this? Why do I feel so alone in this? I just felt like there was like nothing but negative shit on the internet about HIV, and people like calling people out saying this guy gave it to me, everybody had bad shit to say. It was always calling people out. I didn't see anything really positive, and I didn't see any women that looked like me. That was the other thing. I just saw gay men. I couldn't find anybody. So I thought, okay, I had a partner at the time. We ended up staying together an additional 5 years. We're no longer together, but that's a whole nother story. So I asked him how he felt about me making a YouTube video to kind of explain to because at the time I didn't have social media. I had like Facebook. I had like 300 friends and family. And I thought, I want to do a video explaining like exactly what happened, how I got super sick, how nobody diagnosed me for 2.5 years. And I had some really obvious symptoms that, like a swollen lymph node. I had just some things that like doctors should have been a little bit more like, maybe that we should look into that further. But I had never tested for HIV during those 2.5 years, and I know who I got it from. I figured that out pretty soon after my diagnosis, so I was able to figure out how long I'd had it. So by the time I was diagnosed, it'd been about 2.5 years.
Okay.
And so I was just like, I kind of wanted people to understand like how it all went down, how I really, got really sick. It didn't need to happen. I didn't need to get that sick. If I had found out so much sooner or had tested, I never would have been to this place where I felt like I was almost dying. But also I wanted people to know that, my God, you can come back from an AIDS diagnosis and have a totally normal life. You don't have to die today from AIDS. Like that doesn't even have to happen. So I didn't know that myself so much. And I also didn't know like, oh, I could have a totally normal lifespan. I also can't transmit this sexually once I'm undetectable, just meaning I take a pill a day. The medication is free. My doctor is in my town. I thought I'd have to drive to San Francisco and see a specialist. No, there's HIV doctors all over the place. So a lot of things I didn't know. So I wanted this information to be out there. So I thought, and this was kind of around the time, it was 2016. And a lot of people were branching out, doing a lot of YouTube, like follow my life YouTube
Right.
channels. And I was really into a few of them. There was a local guy, a skater that I followed. And I kind of was like, I kind of want to do what he's doing. I'm gonna tell my story first of all, and then share the link on my Facebook. Sorry, I can talk a lot, so you cut in anytime.
Fine.
Um,
We
but
both
I
here.
so I did this 30-minute video explaining basically what had happened to me, and
So
I
what
wanted to be
did
able to
happen?
use that. What was that?
What happened?
What happened?
Yes, what happened?
Oh, so okay, so I added the link to my Facebook, and then the YouTube channel just started getting followers. Well, I got subscribers, and I just was like, who are these people? Why are they following me? I didn't expect that. And then the video kept going and going, and I just kept making more videos, and it turned into a channel about HIV, and that's how my advocacy started. So it was really organic. I kind of thought, I mean, I remember laying sick on my couch, and my girlfriend said, I have a feeling you're going to like tell people about this and educate people. She says, I just have a feeling you're going to do that, because I was already a teacher,
Right.
a substitute teacher. And so I was like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I was so sick in that moment. I'm like, maybe. And then like it totally happened. And like, that's all I do now. Is it's not all I do, but it's takes up a big part of my day for sure, talking about it through all my social media. So it's just grown from there. YouTube was the beginning. And then I branched into Instagram in 2017. And then, of course, COVID happened and everyone jumped on TikTok. And I'm like, I love TikTok. It's my favorite. I don't even do YouTube anymore. I'm like, fuck YouTube. It's a nightmare. Making YouTube videos is a lot of work, and you don't get paid, jack shit for it. So it's like TikTok, super fun. Music, they're short, it's catchy. I love it. I love it. So much fun.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So you say back in 16, you were laying on this couch and you were sick. You were sick. Like,
Yeah.
you said you had a 30-minute video explaining your journey. Like, how did you feel like when you first were diagnosed? Like
Oh man,
it was
that
the
was a
world.
dark moment. Yeah, and by the time I made the YouTube video, I should explain it was 5 months after I'd been diagnosed, so I was all better by then. But yeah, when I got that call, I had gone into the doctors probably 3 times within 3 weeks. By the third visit, I'm like, look, this is not going away. I don't know what's going on with me, because they kept sending me home just saying, it's viral, drink fluids, get rest, what you would typically say for something that's viral. And it was viral, but it was HIV. It wasn't just something my body could take care of on its own. So yeah, they said, okay, we're going to send you in for blood work. And it came back abnormal. There was something up with my, I think it was my white blood cells. And they said, okay. And I remember looking at that there was a stamp, a little rubber stamp, and they had checked the box abnormal. And I was like, what the hell is going on? Like, and then I go in to see another doctor the next day. And I see it was an internal medicine doctor. And he said, so we're going to test you for everything. Like lupus, meningitis. Like, he's like, if you feel like you're getting like confused, get to the ER right away. I was like, what is happening to my life? I've got 3 kids, and it was scary, because I kind of thought I had cancer. And then I also thought I surf. So I thought, God, did I swallow a parasite from the ocean? And that's what's like, I'm feeling head to toe. Cause at that point I was super achy. My whole body was so achy, and super tired. I couldn't eat. I was totally nauseated. So I'd lost weight, all the classic symptoms of HIV and AIDS. And, so I got that phone call about 3 hours after I had the blood drawn, and I was home when I got the call. And a lot of people just can't believe that you could actually find out over the phone. It totally happens like that. People find out when they do life insurance policies. I know a woman who got it in the mail. She was coming home from work and opened her mail, and it said she was denied the life insurance policy because her blood work came back with an HIV positive. That's how she found out. Like, I hear the craziest stories of how people find out. So anyways, I get the phone call from the doctor, and he says, we did get a positive back. You have tested positive for the HIV antibody. And I remember just thinking like, oh, fuck, like, how did this happen? Oh my God. And I had been a single mom dating. I had been on Tinder, and I had, I definitely had dated, I don't know, had sex with plenty of guys. And I was just thinking, oh my God, how long has this been in me? Who gave this to me? Like, and also I felt immediately like I messed up. Like I messed up, or else this never would have happened. Like, I did something wrong for sure, because otherwise this never would have happened. But do you know how many people are out there having unprotected sex who never ever get HIV? It was just basically unlucky. I came across somebody who was high risk for HIV, And basically, he was an ex needle user. He had shared needles for drugs. And when he was high on meth, he was having sex with men. So those two things are super high risk for HIV. So I was with him. We had had a 8-month relationship. And so in that moment, I felt like my life was over. I thought I was going to die. How long do I have to take care of my kids? Who's going to raise my kids? Can I work? All of those things, like every question you can even think of, like went into my head in that moment. And it was so dark. And also my boyfriend at the time was in the room looking at me going, well, what is he saying? And I look over at him, and we'd been dating a year. And I was like, I just look at him and I'm like, that relationship's over. He's going to leave. He's going to, like, all my secrets are going to come out now. He's going to know I'm a whore. Like, that's kind of like in my mind. And I thought, oh my God, my kids are going to find out what I've been doing when they're at their dad's or whatever, like those things all come. You're like, oh my God, everybody's going to think I'm the worst person ever. I mean, all I did was have sex. Like, that, this is such a bad thing, right? But in your mind, you're thinking that. And so I thought he would leave me. He didn't. He did stay with me, and he was negative. I always talk about this a lot. He'd been exposed to me for an entire year, and he was negative. And female to male transmission is really, really low risk with regards to HIV. So a lot of times I see that story a lot. Women get it, and it kind of stops with them. But yeah, so yeah, super dark feeling. And I was physically ill on top of it. So just to like even comprehend, like that's what was causing it, just kind of compounded that physical, like how bad I felt physically. So yeah, it was bad.
So you say like men to women is super low. It's
Yeah. Female to male.
female to male. Why is it super low female to male?
Because we just don't really have a way to get it inside of a man's body, because it's like women have two holes. We have two receptive areas that can be torn, and semen can get in there, and that's typically how it's transmitted. And that's why it's so high risk for men, because men have sex really one way. And so it's the receptive partner that's high risk for it. But for a woman to put it in a man's body, it's not herpes. Herpes is super different. That's skin to skin. But for HIV, it's super specific, and it has to reach the bloodstream. It has to actually touch the bloodstream and be like, even with that, like I'd been exposed to this person who gave it to me for 8 months. He had it the whole time I was with him. And when I look back on when I seroconverted, what I think when I seroconverted, because it's like I'm looking back at when I had these really extreme symptoms, it was 2 weeks after we broke up. So like I got it literally the last week we were together, meaning I'd been exposed to him for 8 months and didn't get it. Like, I'm pretty sure.
Wow. So how did, like, once you was diagnosed and you ever approached him about it?
Okay, so that's a fun story. I did. I reached out to him right away. I found him through. I had to like find his cousin on Facebook first. I didn't have his phone number anymore. And I said, Eric, and he's on my TikTok. So if anybody goes onto my TikToks, if you scroll down to the guy in the car with me, because we did a YouTube live together, it's him, and he's fine with being like, talking about. He jokingly calls himself my HIV infector. We jokingly say that because we're all good with what happened. But yeah, when I first found, I mean, it's taken a while to get to that point, but when I first found out, within 20 minutes, I told my partner at the time, I know who it is. I know it's got to be Eric, because he is the only one that's like super high risk for HIV. And so within 4 days, I got a hold of him, and I said, his mom said, yeah, he's positive, but we gave your name and number to the clinic when he was diagnosed. So he was diagnosed 2.5 months after we broke up, like literally right after. And he never called me personally, but he gave the clinic my name and number, which is fine. That's what you should do. Right. And I don't know, they never called me. And so I never got the call. They were in Sacramento. I was in Santa Cruz County. And I could blame him. I could blame them, but whatever. I'm responsible for my own body too. I could have also been testing for HIV. But I just never had really thought about it much. I tested in 2011. Because I worked at a doctor's office where we all decided to test for fun, me and all the ladies. And I got tested with each of my pregnancies. And other than that, I'd never tested for HIV. So that was it. And I was negative in 2011. So I'm like, okay, yeah, it was. And then, of course, he said, yeah, I'm positive. But he goes, dude, I thought they called you. And he goes, I assume they called you, you tested, you were negative, and you just went on with your life. He goes, I never in a million years thought that you were positive. He goes, I don't know. He goes, I was in my own funk, going through my own shit. He went totally like downhill when he found out his diagnosis and went into drugs again, became homeless, just, became really selfish about his own life and didn't really think about anybody else. So I wasn't on his radar at all. So yeah. So yeah, that was people get really mad on the internet about him, and that's why I've recently interviewed him just so he could tell his side of it, and people could see, like, look, you don't have to like hate the person that gave it to you. We're all human. He didn't try to give this to me. It just happened. I mean, it just shit happens, you know?
Right.
So
So that was his first intel of knowing after 2 months after that. So it was like never that he knew before that.
right. That I know of. I mean, I
Well,
don't think so. I talked to a lot of people think that he knew. I'm like, no, the guy was such a hypochondriac. He for sure would have said something. There's just no way. He didn't
well,
know.
I mean, I'm
Yeah.
not here to judge or anything like
Yeah.
that, but I'm just asking, like, it was never brought up. But if you say 2 months after, then that's what we're going with, 2 months after. So, and he went
Yeah.
into a deep dark place, but he did tell the doctors to call out to you. They never reached out to you. So,
Correct.
you finally got a hold of him and explained to him, and he said what he said. So now your partner at the time,
Mm-hmm.
you said he stayed, but how did he feel? Like, did he like change or he just remained the same?
Good question. No, he didn't change. He was supportive. We had an interesting relationship. He was from Montreal, Canada, basically the complete opposite side of the United States, and a little east and or north. And so we had a long distance relationship. So he was here during the winters. We had just done this for 1 year. We'd only been together 1 year, but he was basically scheduled to leave. And like 3 weeks after I was diagnosed, he was scheduled to drive back to Canada and then work all through the summer because he has his own business that once the snow melts, it's like an construction type business. And then he would come back and live here again during the winter. And then we go back and forth flying and meeting, seeing each other like every month kind of. So it was not the most traditional relationship. It was long distance. But he basically, as I got pretty much better and normal, he was leaving for Canada again. And I was like, I never asked him in those 3 weeks, are you going to stay with me? I couldn't even ask. I assumed since he didn't leave from the day he found out and he
Mhm.
never brought it up that he would stay. But when he drove back to Canada, I thought, well, he could just say he doesn't want to. But then I ended up going out to Canada about 3 months after my diagnosis, about 2 months after he left. And it was like nothing had changed between us. So I knew then that, and I mean, like nothing, like he didn't use condoms or anything. Like I knew everything was fine. And he wasn't afraid of me because he'd been exposed to me with a really high viral load. My viral load was 507,000 at the time. And then when I took the medication, it dropped down to undetectable, which means the labs can't even find it. The lab test can't find it. It doesn't mean it's gone. It just means that it's so well hidden in my cells. It's not in my free flowing blood. So I'm not transmittable even, but women are already, like I said, are really, it's hard for a woman to give it to a man. So he just knew, like, he's like, well, if I can't get it from you when you had a super high viral load, there's no way I'm going to get it when you're undetectable. And to me, I mean, for him, I wasn't any different to him. I was still Jennifer and nothing had changed. But what had changed is that I started to, start this advocacy. I started to like talk about it publicly. And he was okay with it. In fact, he was kind of excited about like the whole, talking to people through comments, trolls, and all the shit people were saying to me. And he was like, you should handle it this way. We talked about it all the time. And and where what it could lead to. And I had offers to do commercials, and I tried out for different commercials for drug companies, and then at the end I was never picked. And they said, oh, you ended up making it to the very last, but they cut you at the last minute. And they would never tell me why. And I know why, because I don't fit the demographic. Like, white women are so low on the spectrum of who has HIV that if they put me in a commercial, it wouldn't be reaching the right audience. Like, it wouldn't even make sense. So like, I understand that. So we're underrepresented because they're really, the amount of us, it's low. Like, I was one of 1,200 Caucasian women that were diagnosed with HIV that year. And I think that year there was 38,000 new diagnoses in the US. And I was one of 1,200 white women. That's how low we are on the scale of who has it. So anyways, I'm going off on a tangent, but anyways, he was supportive. Yeah, he was supportive. Nothing changed between us.
That's real support to drive from Canada to California First of all, it's not like it's Vancouver, right, where it's right there, but you're coming from Montreal.
Yeah, but you know what I have here in California? I have the ocean, and he likes to surf. That's why he likes to come here.
Oh, okay. Got
And and we have the mountains too. So he'd snowboard here, he would surf, and he would skateboard. But yeah. But we're not together anymore. That ended about a year ago. So he does that on his own now. But that was the draw to come to California too.
Well, we got a question. Someone asked, are there any mental health resources available after being diagnosed? If not, do you feel the need to seek resources for yourself?
I never did. I felt okay with everything. There definitely is. I mean, obviously, you should go through your if you do have HIV, you'd go through your HIV doctor. They would hopefully be able to find something locally for you. You know, I had asked my doctor if there was like support, if there was like a local support group that I could go to, and I remember her just like kind of being like biting her nail and going, yeah, so you're not gonna feel like you relate to them. It's either gonna be gay men or it's gonna be like homeless people. That's what she told me. And so it was, for me, it was a really like lost feeling. For 5 months before I did my YouTube video, I didn't know one other person that had HIV. It's not like I have girlfriends from college or like my aunt has it. Like it just is not around me at all. I don't neighbors. No, I don't like, didn't know anybody. So that's why I was, for me, it was going online and doing my own, like just putting shit out there, hoping to find somebody because I didn't know anybody. But once I connected with other women that had it, that helped so much. So I always tell people the first thing to do when you're diagnosed is, well, get connected with people online for sure that are diagnosed also, because you do feel like you have this common bond, and it helps so much to talk to other people who have HIV also. But yeah, I do think a lot of people, I've handled it really well. It's just kind of who I am, but I know a lot of people struggle for a while. Like, even though they know physically they're going to be okay, they deal with, the stigma and knowing like, holy shit, like they don't want their family to know, or they don't want to have to tell new partners, or, their job might find out. And so all of these things that have HIV, and it really can affect your mental health. And you gotta seek. Online is the best. Like pause.com has forums. I always tell people to go there and find the forums, but it's not private. It's kind of public.
Okay.
So some people that's worry about, being on something that's more of a public profile.
So you say that people go through it differently. So now, I mean, you've been through it and you're this advocate now, for the West Coast. Possibly for the world. So you're this advocate, and somebody is diagnosed positive and they come to you. Like, how do you are able to like calm them, to tell them it's going to be okay, or how do you do that?
Well, oh my gosh, I can't do that because I get so many people contacting me. I try so hard to do what I can, but there's only so much time in the day, and I have my own life, and I have to work and all that. So I always try to tell people, the same thing. Just go online, go on Facebook, and just look up HIV. You're going to find groups for HIV. Like, get connected with people that have HIV. Go on to Instagram and follow people that have HIV. But I always tell people, the first things I always say is, you're not going to die. Just take your medication every day. You're going to be fine. You will not think of this every day. Eventually, this constant thinking of it and being, oh my God, because you do have to go through this identity shift that, like, you're now a person living with HIV. You're no longer on that side of the fence. You're over here, the place you never wanted to be. Who the fuck wants to be on this side? Nobody wants to have this. This is awful. Like, stigma is so bad. Like, no one wants to have it. I lived 45 years of my goddamn life without this. Like, how am I now over here? Like, how did that even happen? So it's like, you have to like have this whole new thought. You think about yourself differently. It's like, now you're somebody with HIV. Oh my God, what is everybody going to think about me? And you do think, like, wherever you go, people are going to like, they're going to know it. They're going to like as if you have a flashing light on your head. I remember thinking that if I went to the store, people would be like, somehow knowing that I had it. And just know, you get over that. You realize that people just don't know, and everybody treats you the same. So I always tell people, you will stop thinking about it every day. You're going to live a normal life. And, and that when you become undetectable, which takes, roughly a month to 2 months when you start your medication, you can't transmit this sexually. Nobody can. Like, men can have anal sex with men, it can be bloody. There could be semen everywhere. There could be tears, you name it, anything. It is impossible to transmit it. And for me, like it's beautiful. Like, thank fucking God they can do whatever they want sexually and they don't have to worry. It's a huge relief and they don't feel like a threat to anybody else. People with HIV have gone years worried about giving this to other people that they love and they don't want to. And now they know they can't because the studies are there and it's solid. Like it's a really amazing data that they came up with. And it's absolutely, it's totally, information that I give out constantly. It's one of the first things I tell people because not all doctors share this right away.
Okay. So
Yeah.
so now you accepted yourself. Now, how do you tell your family, your children? How do you do that portion of it?
That was easy just because, as you can tell, I talk a lot. So it wasn't even hard. It was like more absurd to me. Like, I cannot believe this, but I have freaking HIV. So I didn't even know I had AIDS for like another 5 days. I just knew I had HIV. And it was like, I had an answer to why I was sick. So it was like, I just wanted to put the puzzle pieces together. It's like, how did this happen? How long have I had it? And then all the mystery things that had been happening to me for 2.5 years were all making sense. My kids were in the house when I found out. My oldest was 15. My next was 12, also a girl. And then my son was 7 at the time. So Owen didn't get it because he was so young. I mean, he knew what mom was sick, but he didn't understand why. Ryan, that's a girl. She's my middle one. I mean, she was 11. She was going to be 12 in a few months. I think I explained to her that I got it from Eric. And, I assumed she kind of got what that meant. My oldest was the one who got on her phone right away. She walked down like right after I was diagnosed on the phone. And I said, oh my God, the doctor said HIV. And so she got out on her phone right away and started Googling HIV. Like, I couldn't even put in those 3 letters in my phone. I could not manage to see any more bad news. Like, that in itself was so much to comprehend. So she looked up stuff and she said, Mom, like, people don't die from this today. It looks like there's medication. It looks like it's pretty manageable. And I was like, okay. So yeah. And I called my mom. I'm like, oh my God, Mom. I called my dad. My brother and sister knew. Like, even my first cousins knew that night
Mm.
because everybody knew I'd been sick. And so
Right.
I wasn't, and blabbermouth me, I told my neighbor because she knew I'd been sick. And then I told, some friends. And I was like, I had told so many people at one point that I was like, I'd rather just have people ask me questions instead of me being a big secret to everybody. And then that way, if they have questions about it, I can just tell them what it is. And then I kept trying to wrap my brain more and more around that. Like, why do I need to feel bad about this? Like, I don't even know why I need to feel bad. Like, why should I not be able to share this with everybody? Because I kept like rethinking, like, shit, should I have told everybody? Like, that totally went through my mind. Like, should I have told people? And then I was like, I kept having to kind of go through that and being like, I think it's okay. I did. I think it's okay. Like, is this going to come back and bite me in the ass? And then I
Mm.
just kind of kept moving forward with it in that way and just was like, well, now these people know. And I guess, the more people I tell, the more people will know. I just didn't want people talking behind my back. I was like, just ask me if you have any questions.
Nobody was like judgmental, shun away from you. Felt like since you were on that side of the fence, like
Yeah,
I mean, because from a person that's being on that side of the fence, we don't know a lot about it. So,
sure.
especially back what 70s, 80s, when people just had all types of myths, like you could just get it by somebody sneezing on you or just touching you, and some myths that we didn't know that wasn't true.
Still today, a guy just texted me yesterday and he said, I kissed an AIDS patient. That's what he said, an AIDS patient. Anyways, it was a girl with HIV who apparently did have AIDS, but he said he kissed her on the forehead and he has chapped lips. He's losing his shit right now thinking he possibly got HIV because he has symptoms, which are, it's just all in his head. So I'm like, yeah, this isn't how it's transmitted. Like, it's amazing. Like, and the guy's young. He's probably in his early 20s. So why is this still perpetuated? These crazy myths, they're still there. People just, I don't know why they don't go away, but they don't.
I mean,
And
well,
yeah,
no, I mean, we look at the myths and like how we look, and people say things which is wrong at the time to say that Magic Johnson should not still be around, but
right.
30, 40 years later.
Yeah, he got it when I was in college. So I think like in 91 around there. So yeah,
91,
shit, has it been 40 years? Oh my God.
yes,
Oh
it's
my
been
God,
40
it
years
has.
since he retired from the NBA, announcing that he was full blown. I mean, well,
Yeah.
he had HIV.
Yeah.
So people just have this myth like there's a timeline, you're supposed to be deceased. But I'm guessing
Yeah.
what I'm getting from you that we are so far advanced in it now, whereas that you can live a normal life.
Yeah. Yeah. I know lots of people just through advocacy who made it that were diagnosed in the 80s that should have died. Like they were totally told by their doctors they were not going to live and they made it. And so you can't they can't explain it. There's just some people that got goddamn lucky and they were sick. Like these people all got sick, but they'd get better and somehow their body would be able to fight off they'd take the medication for the opportunistic infections and then I don't know, maybe their bodies were able to handle the level of HIV in their body before the meds got good. They weren't really good until about, I don't know, the mid 90s. And
Mm,
so Magic, he was like Freddie Mercury died in I think 91.
around that time,
And
same time.
yeah, and so maybe Magic got it at a time where his body wasn't really like affected by it for a few years, because you can go like many years without it really doing a whole lot. Everybody reacts differently. Like I had AIDS in 2.5 years, so it's like you never know. But yeah, so by the time the medication got good, Magic probably just got on it and life went on as normal. So that's probably because some people like will write to me and they think he never had it. And I'm like, I doubt it. I'm sure he has it. Like, why would he put himself through that? So yeah. So just some people got lucky and made it from the 80s, but that wasn't the norm. Most people that I know, like especially from the gay community, said that they lost like most of their friends, really tragic time. Yeah.
Gotcha. So like, you take the medicine. Like, how many pills do you would say that you take a day?
Oh, just one.
Just
I've
one?
always just taken one. Yeah, I used to take one called Triumec. So Tri is for three, and it has three medications in it. They're called abacavir, dolutegravir, and lamivudine. All of those three medications work on different areas of replication for the virus where it wants to replicate in your body. So it stops it at all these different areas where it could possibly replicate, and then it just shuts it all down. So now I just take one pill that has two of those drugs. They actually realize that people can take just two of those drugs and it still has the same effect and it still is efficacious. So I always explain to people like on my TikTok live. So like if you consider Pac-Man my pill
Hmm.
and the ghosts are HIV, the virus, Pac-Man sits at those gates. Like, first of all, Pac-Man went around in the very beginning and ate up all those goddamn ghosts. That's what it did
Right.
right away. And that's why my viral load went from like 507,000 down to nothing. But now those ghosts are locked in to those little, what do you call those little tunnels, and
Right.
they can't come into the game because the ghosts, which are my medications, sit there and wait, and they're like, yeah, you're not coming in. Like they just sit there. So I take that medication every 24 hours, and those ghosts or the virus is in it's basically locked in a cell. It's called um it's the reservoir. What's the name of it? Latent reservoir. It's a latent reservoir is what they call it. And so it sits in this latent reservoir, this part of the cell that it lays dormant in there. And so if it could get into that part of the cell, I'd be cured. But because the medication can't get into that part of the cell, I still will always have HIV. And if I stop taking the medication, that little virus that's in the cell would wake up, it would come out, and it would start reproducing and replicating again. And then I would, it would take a long time, but I would eventually probably get AIDS again. But it would take a long time.
So
So,
you speaking of cure, and that was my next question because
mm-hmm.
there's been reports that cures have came out. There's a cure, simple chemo. I'm hearing chemo. It was a
Well,
study in Germany that happened. The chemo that the guy was taking chemotherapy and he was cured.
Well, it wasn't chemo. That wasn't just chemo. So it's what it is, and I interviewed him. He's called the Berlin patient. He's since passed away, but he didn't die from HIV. He didn't have it anymore. He died from leukemia.
Okay.
And so, anyways, Timothy Ray Brown is the first one to be cured of HIV, and it's not a cure for the masses. This is totally like an aggressive treatment to
Okay.
treat chemotherapy, and in the meantime, it actually cured him from HIV because the donor happened to have this genetic predisposition where were they couldn't get HIV, so they had this. These people are in Europe, and apparently they're only male, and it's like 2% of the population, and they are resistant to HIV. It's just crazy. So,
Mhm.
anyways, Timothy Ray Brown's donor, it was a stem cell transplant. And it basically just created brand new blood cells for him, and it got rid of all the old HIV, and the new ones were without HIV. And so he was actually on PrEP, which is a pill that it's typically indicated for gay men who like to have sex without condoms, and they will not get HIV. They take a pill a day, and it prevents any kind of transmission. And so he was on PrEP, ironically, because he told me laughingly, said, yeah, I like to have sex with men, but I don't want to get HIV again. So I take PrEP. I'm like, oh, good. But yeah, he was cured. And then there was 2 other men that were cured, same exact way that he was. It was through this very aggressive bone marrow stem cell, chemo, leukemia, all that combined. Definitely nothing for the masses at all. It's really, really complicated. And then there was a woman recently who they found she just all of a sudden doesn't have HIV anymore. That was a woman in Argentina. They don't even know how that happened because that had nothing to do with leukemia or cancer. And then there was this other woman who was recently cured by the same stem cell
Okay.
transplant. Yeah. So that has happened. And, if anything, maybe it just offers a window and some, I don't know what goes on. I'm not a scientist, but maybe it will help them find, a way to cure HIV. I know there's this CRISPR technology people talk about a lot. And there's this, I think that's the same thing as the kick and kill, where they are supposed to like bring the virus out of that latent reservoir and then zap it, like the medication would kill it. So there's that. But I don't know. I don't think about a cure at all. I never ever like lay in my bed at night going, God, I hope there's a cure. I mean, of course I don't want people to have HIV, but for me, I'm fine taking a pill a day. I could care less. My life is normal. So it's
So
all good.
New York Times reported maybe 2 weeks ago about the novel treatment.
Uh, Gosh, what is that? With an N as in Nancy?
Yeah, Novel. A lady was cured. This is the third person cured for novel treatment.
Oh, that probably is. Yeah, that's probably that's the same thing. Yeah, she had cancer and it was a umbilical cord transplant. So it was cells that were taken from an umbilical cord, and apparently I would assume that umbilical cord donor had that resistance to HIV. So it's the same process basically, but it's really aggressive, and it's nothing that is practical for the masses at all. So yeah.
And we seen one in the comments. Somebody said they've been cured by transfusions as well.
I don't, maybe, I mean, yeah, like a full blood transfusion, I guess but blood originates from bone marrow. So like bone marrow it would be in there, I would assume. I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but it's not anything that's happened that much. It's pretty uncommon. So it's like a handful of people that have had these pretty aggressive treatments that have taken, and like I said, they were not to treat HIV or to cure HIV. It was completely unrelated to HIV. They just happened to have HIV also, but it was really for cancer. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So the people that actually come to you and advocate, do they ask you like how should they break it? If they're dating, should they tell a person, or they just go right ahead and just continue doing what they're doing without even mentioning it?
Oh yeah, and it's different in every state, disclosure and like legally what people can do. Like in California, if you're undetectable, you don't have to tell. Like you are not, unless you have intent to transmit to somebody, like meaning you are not on your medication, you have a high viral load and you want to give HIV to somebody, which what most people don't realize, that whole scenario is very rare. People are not wanting to give HIV to people. It really is a rare scenario, but people assume HIV means bad, and people who get it are bad, and like they always want to give it to everybody else. That couldn't be further from the truth. People with HIV are terrified of giving this to anybody else. It's the last thing the majority of people with HIV want to do. So with that said, yeah, in California, the laws have recently changed. They've caught up to the science, and that now it's not a death sentence anymore. So it used to be in California, if you transmitted to somebody, it was a felony and it was an 8-year sentence in jail and or prison, I guess. And now it's a misdemeanor. It's been reduced to a misdemeanor, and it's a 6 months sentence. That's if they can prove that somebody wanted to, they tried to. But like, let's say, for instance, I wouldn't do this because it's all over my social media, but let's say I had sex with somebody and I never told them, but I know I'm undetectable. I know I can't give it anybody. They have no case because first of all, they're not going to get it. And so like, what are they going to sue me for not getting it? I mean, but I feel for myself, I need to tell because I just can't live with that not telling. But I do know people that don't tell. It's not that common. I know what's more common is for people to avoid dating altogether because they're so terrified of bringing it up to anybody. People can become violent. There's a lot of like shit that goes on with HIV and like disclosure. So it can be depending. Like, I feel like trans women are at super high risk for violence, and especially they're very high risk for HIV. And so sharing I went to a conference that was all dedicated to trans women, and it was mind blowing to hear like their life and how scary it is and how often they are beat up and, and killed. And HIV it is part of the picture at times. It all depends on the situation and who you're going to be sharing it with. But in general, I would encourage people to share their status because, and I'm talking about people that are undetectable because obviously they can't give it to anybody. But I mean, God, I don't know, if somebody were to find out after the fact, I think that would be a real deal breaker for most people. And if you're upfront and honest and somebody can understand the science, you're going to like be into them even more because you know that they took the time to understand it and they want all of you. They get it. They're like, that's how I always feel. Like, I feel like, damn, they were able to look past it, which is what they need to do. But if they can look past it and not like mentally freak out and know that I'm not going to, plus you can wear a condom too. I mean, really, but seriously, like for them to like, know, like it makes me like, think like, dude, you're a quality person. Like, goddamn, thank you. Cause I don't know if I could do that. Dude, I don't know that I could do that. I think it's really, it says a lot about people who can overlook it. And I don't mean overlook it, like who can actually just go online, freaking Google U equals U, read what it says and go, I'm okay with that. I think I can still get a boner. Right on. Like, I think that's awesome. Like, right, freaking A, thank you. And it makes me feel normal, which is such a great thing. I want to feel normal,
So you said that was on U equals U?
Yeah, U equals U means undetectable equals untransmittable. So every time I keep saying that I can't transmit it, that's the easy way for people to talk about it. And it's like the campaign that we use, basically U equals U. So if you see a U, and in other countries, it's different things. It's N equals N and I equals I. Those are different languages, but we use here in the US, we use U equals U. And I'll put it in the comments, the website for it. I give that website to freaking every it all the time because it's like it has all the information, it has all the studies there that they were able to conclusively say that somebody with a undetectable viral load can never ever transmit. Like the people will say, well, there's no zero in science, and like they will say, yeah, theoretically there isn't a zero in science, but it's like it comes to some like weird number. Like if you had sex every day with somebody with HIV who was undetectable, you'd have to have sex with them like for, I think it was like 2,500 years before there was a possibility of you getting it from them. Like that was like the odds. 2,500 years. Like we don't live that long. So
yeah, not going to be around.
Yeah. So it's a zero. We can confidently say that it will never happen. So yeah.
Got you. So you said you went the Canadian in Montreal bro. I don't know his name. You never said it.
Yeah.
Hold on. In the dating world, do you meet more men that are willing to understand the science or more that are ignorant douchebags?
Well, I've definitely had things happen that wouldn't have happened if I didn't have HIV. So I've had a few who just said, and these were people that had not met me first. I typically don't want anyone to know my status or know anything about me, because once they know my social media and everything, they're going to be like, oh my God, it's like the HIV queen. Who the fuck did I just meet on Tinder? I mean, like, it's like, of course, the one thing they want to avoid is venereal disease. And I'm like, I have the one that nobody wants, but they don't know yet about U equals U. So, okay. So going back with that, I used to I dated on Tinder, before I ever had this. And dating on Tinder has never been hard. And it's just a little bit harder, but it's not that much harder. Like I've been ghosted by one person. It was really rude. And the way he did it, it was a Facebook dating guy. And he was like this all into like, being like into yoga, and he's a rock climber, and he was 10 years younger than me, very good looking guy. Like I was out of his league. Anyway, he was out of my league. He was out of my league. So yeah, he was too hot for me. Like I didn't deserve him.
Don't ever sell yourself short. Don't ever sell yourself short. Don't do that. We don't
No,
do that.
he was like Hollywood beautiful. Like I'm like, I can't believe this guy's talking to me. But he was really into going to India every 3 years and doing like humanitarian stuff, like for kids that are being trafficked, all this really amazing stuff. And so I hadn't told him yet about my status. And then I decided to share my Facebook with him. I decided to be Facebook friends with him. And I said, before you freak out, like I'm undetectable. I've been talking about this for 6 years, whatever. And he writes this really long message to me and says, wow, like it's amazing how sometimes like the worst thing that can happen to you can become your new power. And I really thought, wow, this guy goes to India. I get so many like messages from people from India. Maybe we can like work something out, like, as human beings, do a good thing. I honestly didn't even think that he would be somebody that would have sex with me. I wasn't even going there. I was just thinking, this is a hot guy that maybe I can work with through advocacy. And about a half an hour later, I couldn't find his profile. And he'd already given me his phone number too, which was funny. He said, yeah, let's chat for sure. And a half an hour later, his profile was gone. He'd blocked me. Wow. And I wrote to him on the phone and I said, wow, you blocked me. Like, dude, I wasn't even trying to get into your pants like that. Like, it's pretty, like you come off. And he said like in his profile that he was all about like not judging people, and like people aren't, and I don't look at people for their jobs or how much money they have. It was like that kind of person. And he blocked me. I was like, wow. So that one I was going to talk about on my podcast soon, because I thought that one was really painful. But I have had 7 or 8 successful rendezvous since I became single in May, and only one of them wanted.
I'm about to say May of 2022, but I forgot. Damn, it's only March.
Yeah, it's been about in 10 months. I've had 7 different partners, I think, and a few of them were repeat, just a couple times, and only one guy used a condom, and they all knew I had HIV. I talked to all of them about it, and they were all able to be like, yeah, I looked it up on the internet. Some, were a little bit more, like one guy was like, he goes, I don't know how I'll be in the moment, because we were really just meeting up to have sex. Like he was in town and I thought he was cute. He thought I was cute, and he was around my age. So I met him, and he's like, and he was fine. Like it was all fine. I was like, nothing, like he didn't have any trouble. So, because he was all concerned that psychologically he might, even though he knew I couldn't give it to him, that maybe he would not be able to in the moment, but he had no trouble. And then I do have a funny story of somebody who I met up just for, like, I have needs, married people can do it all the time.
We're not judging. But you said they Google these things. They're not concerned about contracting like STIs or STDs. They're not concerned? Or they just educated?
Are they like other ones besides HIV?
Yeah. Are they concerned about, anything? Just
no, they don't. Like they're not asking me for an STI test, which doesn't always even mean anything, because anybody can like get an STI test and then have sex with somebody the next day and have an STI that doesn't show up on that like my girlfriend and I were just talking about that, because there's a guy that she wants to be with, and she met on Tinder, and he says, okay, if you can provide an STI results. And I said, but how does he know that you didn't have sex with somebody the next day and got something? Like it's only so accurate. So anyway, yeah, I mean, nobody's.
To your story, somebody said, "What Tinder are you on?" Because they don't understand understand this Tinder. They like the Tinder they on is totally different from what you're saying.
Really? Well, I don't know. I mean, I always say, like, in my Tinder profile, I basically say I'm looking for a snowboarding buddy. And then I go from there and I just say, look, I don't know. I mean, I don't know, guys, or maybe maybe the person who's writing is a guy and they're having trouble finding women. I think women have a much easier time finding guys that they can
This
have
was a
sex
woman
with.
that said
What
that.
was that?
This was a woman that said that
Oh,
about
really?
she don't know what Tinder you're on because her Tinder ain't the same.
Oh, well, I don't know. My age range, I go down to 35. So like they're 15 years younger than me. Like that helps too. Is she just meaning like there's like not enough out there? Like,
I don't know. She just wanted to know what Tinder you on because we questions are popping up, and someone else said, even though you're having your needs fulfilled, do you feel like you may catch another STD?
oh,
On
well, if I were to catch anything else, it's, taken care of with antibiotics. So I'm not that worried about it. I do get tested. I do. I've had a gonorrhea. Well, every time I test for HIV, they test me for syphilis, which I didn't even know until recently. My doctor's like, yeah, every time you do an HIV test, which they test me every 4 months, shows we automatically test you for syphilis. And I didn't know that. So gonorrhea and chlamydia are separate. So I have done those like I think 3 times now. I've never had any of those three. So, and herpes, I think everybody has herpes. I'm on Valtrex. I've had herpes since I was 18.
Well,
So,
we just did a herpes show about 3 weeks ago, and we got
yeah.
the tips and the good, the bad, and the ugly about that.
Yeah. It was my first boyfriend, first time having sex, and I got diagnosed at San Jose State, and it was like I thought my life was over. Little did I know I'd end up with HIV someday. But yeah, I feel like people are really that herpes is a whole nother discussion. But to me it is such a nothing because I feel like it just has not affected my life in any way. I take Valtrex once a day, and I don't have any. It doesn't rear its ugly head at all. Like I don't even feel like I have that. But
No outbreaks.
yeah, no. No, I've been on Valtrex for probably 5 years on a daily, and I just nothing ever happens. So no, the only time I really had it was the first one was the worst, and then after that it was more like, oh, what is that? Oh, that might be it, because the doctor told me that it was herpes, but I got my first test was negative. It didn't. It's hard to test for herpes. Like they do like a swab with, and it was really painful. But I remember that test came back negative, and she said, "I'm still going to tell you that it's positive, even though if it comes back negative." She's like, "Because that's it. It looks exactly like that." And the guy that I was with had only been with one other girl, and he didn't even show signs of it. Like herpes is so contagious when you aren't on treatment. It's super common. So, but no, I don't really worry about anything else. So, but yeah, like I was going to say, as far as disclosure, I had a funny story recently with somebody part of me, because I do have a friend in Australia who doesn't, his doctor even said, you don't have to tell anybody because you're undetectable. Like you have to. And so he doesn't, he'll hook up with girls. And for the most part, he doesn't tell them. Sometimes he does. And I thought, maybe I just won't this one time. So I did go meet this guy because, yeah.
You went to Australia?
No, not him. I didn't meet him. No, I met somebody that I met on Tinder, and I met him at a hotel because that's where he was staying. And we.
No, go ahead.
Oh.
That came through.
Oh, okay. So we were, it was cute. He had his dog there, and he's like, we don't even have to do anything if you don't want to. Or whatever. I'm like, no, you're cute. I drove all the way out here. Like, I definitely want to do something. So anyways, we were hooking up, and I was doing something to him, and I started laughing, and he goes, what? I said, I have to tell you something. And this is when I told him in the middle of oral sex. And I said, he goes, what, do you have like AIDS or something? And I started laughing, and I said, well, I have HIV. So here's the thing. And I said, we don't even have to do anything else. If you don't want to do, it's fine. I don't know. I wasn't sure I was going to tell you. And like, if you don't want to do anything more, we don't have to. And he goes, why don't you just keep doing that? Let me think about it. And so anyways, which I thought was a hysterical reaction. And I would have been fine if he didn't want to do anything more. I would have totally understood. But I said, look, here's the deal. I can't give it to you. And he said, he took my word for it. And he goes, well, what if I use a condom? I'm like, you can do that. I said, at this point, I have disclosed to you, it is 100% up to you how you want to handle it and move forward. We don't have to do anything. You can use a condom, and I'm fine if you don't want to. You only live once. I'm 51. I'm not going to get pregnant. I already have HIV. I have herpes. Like, what the fuck? I don't really care. So, anyways, he did use a condom for a little bit, and then he took it off, and he was like, yeah, he was fine. Like, he didn't care. So I thought that was interesting in the midst of all of it, finding out and going forward and being fine with it and not killing me. Thank God he didn't kill me. No, he was a sweet guy.
Well, that's what somebody just said. You wasn't afraid that he would get violent before. Explain that you was.
No, he was such a no. I'd talked to him up leading up to that point. You just never know, but he was kind of a dopey. He was sort of dopey. He was cute, like a surfer kind of guy. I just didn't have I wasn't worried about him at all. He had a really sweet dog in the hotel room, and he was just seemed like a nice guy. So I wasn't concerned that he'd be physically, that he would harm me. No.
Okay. So, so what do you wish people knew about HIV that they currently seem to get wrong, like some of the myths?
Okay, that the medication is so expensive that you can't pay for it. That is not true. We have programs all over the United States. ADAP is a very well-known one. It started with Ryan White. It's called the AIDS Drug Assistance Program. Everybody has access to low cost of free medication in the U.S. In the world, medication is typically free because it's socialized medical care all over the world. So that medication is not expensive. I don't pay a dime for it. You live a normal life. You can't transmit the virus once you're undetectable. Your life expectancy is the same. I just said that. You can't transmit HIV through kissing or sharing someone's drink. Even if I had a super high viral load, I couldn't give it to anybody that way. It's a really specific virus. The virus is so weak. By the way, also, people don't understand that once it hits the air, it's dead. Like, it's so hard to get it from one person's body into the other. That's why it has to be sex, and it has to be like, those parts have to be totally connected. There can't be air. People have said, well, can you get it from like having a cut on your hand and like jerking someone off? No, like your skin, by the way, is a protective barrier. It's always healing from the inside out. It doesn't go through skin like that. So it goes through tears, that are either anal or vaginal. And it typically is, where was I going with that? Yeah. Oh yeah. If you have like an open mucous membrane. So if you have like another STI that is not being treated, that's another route for transmission. So yeah, but and mothers to children, moms can have babies. HIV positive moms can have babies with no trouble when they're on treatment. They just will not transmit it to their babies. Like, that's, a lot of people don't know that. And with regards to breastfeeding, we can almost say that the chance of transmission not quite there yet. It's probably under 1%. The odds, but there is a little wiggle, like a very small amount of wiggle room, that there is a possibility, but it's so incredibly low. But most doctors will tell mothers that they should not breastfeed when they're HIV positive. And I just interviewed a girl on my podcast about that, and she's provides tons of information about it. There's been studies that have been done, and so for the most part, women can they can breastfeed HIV positive moms, but they definitely will never transmit having babies.
Okay.
Not going to happen. So, and I remember going to a U2 concert, which is really weird, in Montreal when I didn't know I had HIV. This was 2015. And I remember Bono dedicating about 5 minutes of the concert to these women in Africa, that if we could just get this pill to them every day, they could have babies that would not have HIV, even though the moms had it. I remember him talking about this. And all he was talking about was just an antiretroviral pill, which is what I take. And I had no idea at that time that I had freaking HIV. And I'm like, wow, like that was what he was telling everybody, is like, if we could just make sure that those women, because really access to medication doesn't always have anything to do with money. It has to do with where you live geographically, and are you able, and stigma, like stigma affects a lot of people getting treatment, because there is still tons of stigma, with regards to like HIV and parts of, like, my gosh, the Middle East, people are sometimes killed, people for sure, like in Africa, like, it's like there is such bad stigma, even though the rates are so high in Africa, it's still, the stigma is still really, really bad. But yeah, the treatment is there, and it's just getting it and making sure you show up and get it.
Well, we just had a question pop up. Can does the medicine affect the breastfeeding?
No, it doesn't. They change the medication when somebody's pregnant if they're not already. There's one specific medication that they'll take when they're pregnant, and once they're not pregnant anymore, they go back onto whatever treatment they were on, unless they were on that, because there are so many pills for HIV out there. Like I take one called Dovato. I have a lot of friends that take Biktarvy. There's Genvoya. There's Triumec. There's all these different medications, but they all basically do the same thing. But as far as like it will not affect the baby when they're nursing. They can, well, it's not that, it's the concern that the baby could possibly get the virus because they're drinking. See, the thing is that it's an amount thing. It's the with sexual transmission, the fluid is so little, right? But with babies, they're ingesting on a regular basis loads of fluid that could possibly have a little bit of HIV in it. So that's the concern, is that, and their immune systems are so small and underdeveloped that there's this possibility that they can get it that way. But it's still with women being undetectable, the odds are so low. But the medication does not affect the babies. No.
Okay. Well, you reached the part, in the show right here. It's called "I Be Damned." You told a funny dating story, and this is where I get a viewer or someone that I know or somebody just texts me and tell me a story, and
Uh-huh.
I read it back over, and you break it down at the end. This story is about 5 minutes long, and it has something to do with a Lauryn Hill concert. So, brother, for real, can you roll "I Be Damned" this week? Good evening. Welcome to another edition of I Be Damn. So we breaking it down from DC today, and it goes a little something like this. So I met this guy, and 5 minutes into our first conversation, he invited me to go with him to see Lauryn Hill over the upcoming weekend, which was 5 days away. I was taken aback at first and actually thought he was joking because he didn't know me from Adam. But I was very excited to go because A, I love music, and B, I have never seen Lauryn Hill perform live before. I accepted his invitation and thanked him very kindly. He wanted to get together that week before the day of the concert, but he caught a really bad cold and decided to hold off until he got better. Although I wanted to see him, this worked out for me because the way my non existent health insurance was set up, I couldn't afford to get sick. We did manage to talk to each other daily on the phone and in FaceTime to continue to get to know each other. I learned that he was a devoted father of one who had a difficult upbringing. I believe his parents were addicted to drugs or something. But he turned his life around for the better once his child was born. He was headed down the wrong path initially. We also discussed the logistics for the night of the show, what he was wearing, what time he was going to pick me up, etc. Fast forward to showtime. Let's get there. I had gone out the night before to two events and stayed out way too late, knowing good and hell well that I'm no spring chicken. LOL. So needless to say on the day of the concert, I was dead tired, but I sucked it up because I was so excited to see me some Miss Lauryn Hill. Started singing some of her songs to myself and began to get ready at 5 and hell well that I'm no spring chicken. LOL. So needless to say on the day of the concert, I was dead tired, but I sucked it up because I was so excited to see me some Miss Lauryn Hill. Started singing some of her songs to myself and began to get ready at 5 p.m. Hey, I move slowly when I'm tired. I called my date to double check the time and he confirmed that he'd be at my crib at 7. 6 p.m. rolls around and I get a call from my date saying this: "Hey, how would you feel if I sold the tickets to the show?" "Why on earth would you do that? You're joking, right?" "Nah, see, my man wants to buy them."
I'm confused. Why is this even an option? Why would you give him the impression that the tickets were for sale? Well, I was telling him that I was taking you to see the show, and he said he'd buy them from me because he didn't have anything planned for his girl for Valentine's Day, and he wants to do something for her Valentine's Day after the show. I'm not cool with that at all, but it's your decision. If you want to make some money, that's on you. Just know, if you decide to do sell the tickets, you will never hear from me again. Come on, don't be like that. I don't need the money, that's just my man's. I'll call you back and let you know what I decide. 15 minutes goes by, he calls back. Sweetheart, please don't be mad. I had to sell him the tickets. I'm sorry. Actually, you didn't have to sell him the tickets at all. I'm not understanding why you would thought this was even cool. Your friends and inability to plan is not my problem, but that's my man's. I know he'd do the same for me. I'm sorry. Let me make it up to you. I can take you to a nice restaurant. We can go right now. I can pick you up at 7. No, thank you. I'm not going anywhere with you. Why? You're already dressed. I live right down the street and can come pick you up. Nah, I'm good. I'm not interested. I can't get with rudeness. Yeah, it was rude, but that's my man's. And I'm giving you another option. Your option doesn't include Lauren. Hello, you dumb fuck. You just can't offer to take someone to a concert and then turn around and renege on the offer at the 11th hour as if it's going to dinner is some sort of if going to dinner is some sort of consolation. You know what? I'm not even going to argue with you. I'm out of here. Unless Lauren Hill was going to sing Sweetest Thing while serving me my food at this nice restaurant, there was no way in hell that I was going out with that guy. I was completely turned off and thought that what he did was extremely rude. He probably took somebody else and was trying to find an excuse for me not to go. Oh well, I went to bed and got me some much needed rest. I see you, Lauren Hill, one day. One day. That thing, that thing, that thing. Oh, I forgot part. P.S. I read the reviews and I heard from others that the show was rather disappointing. People had to wait in line to get inside because the doors didn't open on time and that Lauren Hill showed up over 2 hours late.
Ooh.
That news brought a huge smile to my face. Petty, but who cares? See you next week on Amsterdam Talk. I'll be damned. Peace.
All right. So break that down right there. You know, he sold the tickets.
That was not nice. I'd be so pissed. Are
Right.
you kidding?
Yeah, he sold the tickets, and you know, because his homeboy didn't have the date for his girlfriend, and then I guess
Yeah.
karma was that you waited outside 2 hours long for her to show to start.
I was confused at first. When you said my man's, I thought he had a boyfriend. I'm like, no,
No.
that's his friend who didn't do anything for his girlfriend. So he needed the tickets. Or possibly he took another chick, right?
Could
That
have
was a
been.
possibility too. Oh, snap. That's mean. That's so mean.
Hey, this is stuff that happens, man. You know, once a week at about 9:55, 10 o'clock, we tell these stories, and this was shocked me when I saw this one come across.
It does happen. People, oh yeah, like this, the craziest stuff happens with people last minute. I mean, we can all just like, basically block people if we don't like their reaction. It's real easy to get out of it, So you
Yeah.
can't be too mad. But yeah, God, I'd be bummed out. That would have been a great show. Although it sounds like she was late anyways, so that would have stunk.
Well, she's known for being late.
Is she? Miss Lauren's a little bit of a diva. I didn't know that.
Yeah, she's known for being late.
Goddamn, 2 hours though. Damn, that's really late. Oh my gosh, I had no idea that she was like that.
Yeah, she's known for being late. So it was like when I got to the bottom of it, P.S. 2 hours later, I'm like, oh, that's the norm. Like, we got lucky. But
Wow.
but I'd definitely like to thank you for coming on and educating us today about dating with HIV.
Yeah.
With some myths that you cleared up for us, for the viewers. And
Awesome.
thank you. Where can they reach you if they have any questions for themselves?
Oh yeah, the best way to reach me is through my Instagram. It's just Jennifer Vaughn HIV, and it's VAUGHAN. And anyways, I put it in the comments. And yeah, probably there, because you can't write to me on TikTok unless we're friends, and everything gets lost on YouTube. So yeah, my Instagram is the best way to reach me for sure. But even then, it's hard. I've got so many damn messages. I need a secretary, but I try. I do try to get to them. I really do. But yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was so nice. You're awesome. I really thought you were in Amsterdam. I was first.
No, that's just
I'm like, cool. But you are on the East Coast though, yeah?
Yes, I'm on the East Coast.
Okay, cool. Yeah, this was an awesome, fun podcast. I really appreciate you having me.
All right. So when does Don't Stop Me Now come on?
I'm really like completely, I usually do it on Mondays, but I've been very bad. I haven't done it in like 3 weeks because I don't get paid for it. So I do it when I feel like it, basically. But I try to do one a week. I've been a little bit slow about it lately, but I think I have 40 episodes now. So there's plenty to listen to. There's like plenty for people to go through. And I've interviewed lots of people with HIV. And if people know Pedro Zamora from the Real World, which is way back from the San Francisco Real World, it was like in the early 90s. I've interviewed his roommate, Judd Winnick, which I'm a huge Real World fan. I've always been a fan of that show. So I'm really proud of that interview. But I have interviews with lots of people that have HIV, and it's great because they're people can talk really openly through a podcast when they're not being seen, and they can talk about their diagnosis because nobody knows who they are. Most people I interview are not public, so that it's like, but it works with a podcast because they can speak openly and no one knows who they are. So yeah. But yeah, I'm not very good about being on a regular basis. Sometimes I get on a roll and I'm doing them once a week, and then sometimes I just take a little break. So I'm sort of on a break right now.
If they ever want to come over here and share their story, they can, and we can black the screen out for them. That's
right. Totally.
That's not
right on.
Man. Yes. So thank you again. Don't Stop Me Now. Mondays. Don't Stop Me Now podcast. One Mondays when she feels like it.
No, I'm terrible.
Subscribe, share, subscribe. Hit up on TikTok, Jennifer Vaughn, Instagram, Jennifer Vaughn. Educate yourself. Stop being ignorant, people.
Totally. Awesome.
Totally. Thank you again. And
thank you.
See you guys next week. I think the good, the bad, and the ugly about Brazilian butt lifts. I'm not sure. I have to check again. I think that's one of them. Is BBLs or open marriages, either or? I can't remember. I have to check the calendar.
Good stuff.
Thank you.
All right, bye. I'll hit the leave button now. Good night. Bye.